Hi, I'm Bill Arnold. Thank you for listening to this podcast. There are many more podcasts available at myfaithradio.com. Your support makes this possible. Thank you. No reservations needed, and walk-ins are welcome.
Oh, don't you know, it's the Bill Arnold Show. It's Bill.
And a warm welcome to the Bill Arnold Show. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and God created all things. And how important is it that we teach our kids all about creation? And I've got Stephanie Wilhelm with me today here, right here in studio, and that is her passion. Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, let's hear a little bit about your background and a little bit about your amazing ministry you've got.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian home. At the age of 13, I found out about a local children's ministry called Child Evangelism Fellowship. They're worldwide, so you have one here locally in St. Paul.
What's not to like about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, okay.
Yeah, so I grew up doing those programs. We would teach these backyard Bible clubs in people's homes. I got really awesome hands-on experience on how to share the gospel with kids, which was truly foundational for the rest of my life. I went to Bible college at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago and got my undergrad in theology and then my master's in biblical and theological studies there. And have loved teaching kids for a really long time. And then my husband and I got married in 2020. We found out about a ministry called Alpha Omega Institute and felt like the Lord was leading us to move to Grand Junction, Colorado, where we served there about a year and a half. So we got hands-on training on just how to share on creation. So a different style of teaching than what I was used to, but I was still able to take my background with CEF with me, which was awesome. And then I was actually one of those people that didn't understand why creation was important. We were learning about the ministry, and I was like, who cares kind of what you believe? It doesn't really matter. And my husband's like, no, it does. But we didn't know a lot. And so we obviously learned more, and now it makes sense. Creation is foundational. And so if you have the first couple of chapters wrong in the Bible, you likely have a lot of other things wrong. And the first proclamation of the gospel is found in, I think, Genesis 3:15, I think my husband said. And so, you learn about the very first gospel proclamation there and why there's sin, why there's all of these really big issues. It's all foundational.
Stephanie, at what age do kids have an understanding of God and a relationship? What would you consider the age range?
That's kind of a difficult question because, obviously the Holy Spirit can
intervene at any point.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have a 4-year-old at home and she does not comprehend the gospel quite yet. Okay. But I know a couple of 4-year-olds who do. I know statistically there's the 4 to 14 window where odds are between the ages of 4 and 14, whatever you believe in, that won't change. So if you come to know Christ between that time, odds are you're going to take that into your adulthood. But then, after that point, obviously God can still use you and you can come to know Christ later. But usually people's views are cemented when they are kids.
And safe to say the world is actively trying to get to our kids.
Oh, yes, definitely. The most recent example I have of this, one of my friends was applying to be a librarian. She loves books, just wanted to work at the library. And she was homeschooled, pretty conservative, and the library wouldn't hire her because she wasn't woke and wasn't liberal enough. And so that kind of made me think, even in the library systems, I've seen a change where there's not these sweet little old ladies being your librarians anymore that are picking out books and reading these cutesy little children's stories. I walk into so many libraries and they have an agenda now. And so I believe they have to hire LGBTQ people. And so now the books that my kids are picking up are different than the ones that I picked up as a kid. And so it's not enough that we aren't reaching our own generation, but like everybody else literally is trying to reach your kids for whatever agenda that they have.
And that is a pretty tender young age. And if you can confuse them at that age and get them on board a certain way of thinking, they may not wander from that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I've just noticed a lot more like crazy children's books. I'm like, man, where did they get these ideas? You can't talk about gender anymore. Well, as long as it's the biblical gender.
Right.
But I mean, they're taking all of these books out and they're censoring things. And so it's just very interesting that, yeah, the world understands that if they can reach kids first, then they can kind of take them whatever way that they want. I think even Hitler said something similar where he's like, give me one generation of kids and I can kind of change the world.
Yeah.
Because if you can indoctrinate them young, you can kind of shape who the next generation is.
Mm-hmm. And if I were Satan, my strategy would want to try to wound kids at the earliest age possible.
Oh, yeah. And obviously you see that in the world today. I mean, we see so much trauma just within kids.
Oh, I know. And there are so many people and different ideas tugging at them. And kids just want to fit in for the most part. They want to have friends and feel like they belong. And if this certain number of people in the group say, if you want to belong to this group, you're going to believe this. Yeah, kids might say, I don't think my parents are going to be happy, but I want friends.
Yeah. I mean, even as adults, it's really hard. And we have our brains fully developed. And so if we as adults have a hard time fitting in or not wanting to stand out, then how much more so with these kids that don't have their emotions regulated and all of the things. And yeah, they're being told so many different things. Even movies with my daughter, we'll watch something and it was just a VeggieTales thing that we had just watched with her. And in one of the scenes, somebody took something and they're like, oh, well, we're just borrowing it. And I could tell they're clearly stealing it, obviously. And it was part of the whole plot. But Josie told me later that day, she was like, oh, well, they were just borrowing it. Why did he get thrown in jail? He didn't do anything wrong. They were just borrowing it. And so it's just so easy to get confused at that age. And
yeah, not to mention, I feel like we've medicalized sin.
yeah.
You're not a thief anymore. You're a kleptomaniac.
Yeah.
You're not immoral. You're a sex addict.
Yeah.
I don't know. There seems like we've got a term for everything, and we just should call it sin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Stephanie, what about followers of Jesus? Are we doing a good job investing in our kids? Obviously, we want to be investing in our kids, but overall, are we doing a good enough job?
No.
Okay.
And one of the reasons I can say that is because we've visited tons of churches and I'll look at their curriculum. I'm a real snob for curriculum, especially for children, because it just sets up, again, what they're going to believe and how they're going to believe it. And so I walk into so many churches and it's this cutesy little Bible story. Half the details are missing. It might not even be accurate. Bible, like any of the popular kids TV shows that are Bible themed, like the new David movie, it had inaccuracies. And so I've gotten into debates with people where they're like, well, you know, we obviously know the Bible, we can read it, we need to train them on it. But my response is I teach so many kids and they get wrong ideas even from movies that are Christian based or their Sunday school teacher didn't accurately teach them. And so,
so there's a biblical literacy problem on top of all of it.
Yeah.
And that's where the problems continue.
And I think also if parents aren't on fire for the Lord, it's so easy to not pass that to kids. And so if you're not reading your Bible every day, if your kids don't see you read your Bible, if they don't see you praying, if they don't see you growing in your faith, or if you're not talking with them about it, then kids just don't catch it. And so they catch what all of their other peers are doing and things like that. And so...
And you don't want your kids to grow up with a warped view of Christianity.
Yeah.
Because eventually there's going to be enough people that are going to be rejecting Christianity, but are they rejecting the true Christianity?
Yeah.
Are they rejecting the Jesus of the Bible, or are they rejecting what the culture has taught them about Christianity?
Mm-hmm.
It's a big question.
Yeah, so one of those topics is obviously in Genesis, we go against the idea of evolution. So evolution teaches that everything happened by chance and accident, random processes, and a key point in that is you need like millions and billions of years. You need lots and lots of time for these accidents to kind of produce something helpful or beneficial, like a beneficial mutation or something, which doesn't exist. Mutations are bad in themselves. And so we don't see life producing from nothing. But there's just a tremendous amount of pressure from just the scientific community to conform to evolution. But I think one of the reasons evolution is a thing is because they're trying to get God out of the picture. So if they can come up with another reason of how the world began, that we don't need God, that God didn't intervene in any sense, then yeah, why believe in God at all if you can kind of promise away other things?
Wyatt and I did a little segment on the show a couple of weeks ago, Wyatt. We were talking about creation and spectacular instances in God's creation, like a woodpecker who has a G-force of about 1,000 to 1,400 Gs during one of his hard pecks. And I go, he couldn't have evolved. His head would have blown off the first time he did that. And
he has to keep his eyes shut, otherwise his eyes literally bounce out of his head.
Yeah, his tongue works as a shock absorber around his brain.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It's just one of many examples we talked about, too. There are other animals and other things you could point to as well that do kind of derail the idea of evolution very quickly.
And I would think kids would just be absolutely fascinated with hearing about animals and God's creation.
Yes. One of our programs that we teach is on design. So we walk through several different animals. The woodpecker is one of them.
Okay.
And then several others where it's like, man, this is so cool. Obviously needed an intelligent designer, a creator God to make that. You know, you go to Mount Rushmore and you don't look at that and be like, oh, yeah, wind, erosion, freezing rain, bam. Now we have this really cool thing. Given enough time, evolution says that should happen.
I'll get it.
And so, but then they'll look at you and you are way more complex, way more design, way, way, way more awesome. And they'll say, oh, yeah, but you happened by chance and accident. So it's just interesting to me.
Are people being intellectually honest when they make those kinds of statements? One day I want to put my clothes in the dryer and then open them and they're all folded.
Yeah, exactly.
What day is that going to happen?
Yeah, that's a good example.
Well, it's never going to happen. So why do we not apply the same intellectual honesty and curiosity that, as you described? Mount Rushmore is just not going to be the result of a certain wind or rain or persistent storms that all of a sudden carves these perfect faces of presidents.
But again, it's this ideology. In itself, I think evolution is its own religion because they are pressing it so heavily within the scientific community. If you're a Christian and you don't believe in evolution, you basically don't have a job or people don't take you seriously, even though you may have the background and you could have all the facts right. So I think at the end of the day, it is just an ideology that is so pushed on people that there's no room for anything else. And so it has been amazing where it's like, this really doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. Even just like the basic people, I think they just haven't thought about it before. Even the Christians, maybe they believe that God used evolution. And that's a popular theory that, God used evolution and he put all these things in place. But God was the mastermind behind it all. But then still, you're saying that God used death, decay, all of these horrible diseases, all of like just death and just all of the really horribleness that came to get to his most perfect creation. And so now he's not this perfect God that created something. There was a lot of trial and error. So now maybe he's a clumsy God or he's not as powerful. Like you just ripped so much power from him. No, like God spoke and immediately everything obeyed. So he has that kind of power. And we see that with Jesus in the New Testament. Jesus performed miracles. He didn't, oh, well, I know you're blind and give it a couple thousand years or, give it a bunch of time and through these processes. No, like he actually immediately healed them.
Yeah.
And so that same power was alive and people hated him for it. He got that same persecution. And so I think whenever truth is, there's always this opposing force of oppression where people just don't want the truth.
It seems like it's a lot easier just to believe the things that are true.
Yeah.
There's my profound thought for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've used it up now. We're going to take a break and come back. Stephanie Wilhelm is my guest. We're going to continue our discussion about creation and how important it is to teach our kiddos biblical creation and the understanding of it. We'll be right back. We want you to know how grateful we always are for your financial support here at Faith Radio. We, of course, are listener-supported, so thank you for partnering with this ministry and helping us to change lives through conversations that point to Jesus and bring hope. So thank you. You can give your gift at myfaithradio.com. Again, thank you for your support. Stephanie Wilhelm is my guest. We're talking about creation and how important it is to teach this to kids. So, Stephanie, God creates man and woman, and part of the problem today is that there are other options, and kids are being taught that you may wake up one day and not feel like you're a boy anymore, or vice versa. And you're 9 years old, and you can't go get a tattoo at 9.
No.
But you can...
You can't make any other life decisions.
No, not a one.
Yeah.
But somehow they want it to be okay to change your sexual presentation.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to change your sex.
Yeah. Which is wild. I've talked to counselors, and the counselors in the industry are saying, especially in some states, if a child comes to me and says, hey, we're having this gender confusion, they're not allowed to share the biblical basis or just say hey, I know you're confused, but this isn't true. They just kind of have to let them come to their own conclusions. And if not, they can get their license ripped away. I think maybe even go to jail. It's this crazy thing.
That's just evil.
Yeah. And again, we would never allow a child to drive. They're not allowed to make any legal changes, but without their parents' permission. And I don't know at what age this starts, but it's fairly young.
Yeah.
They're allowed to get a sex change, and the parents can't do anything about it.
Yeah. You can't give them an aspirin.
Yeah.
But you can somehow be in the dark on your child getting a sex change.
Yeah.
Okay, that is absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
That makes me mad.
Yeah. It is.
There's nothing else you can do at that age. You cannot make adult decisions. And I'm sorry that is going on. I think there are some improvements in the world right now, but it's still going on.
Yeah.
And kids have no idea at 9, 10, 11, 12. They have no idea. And the big threat out there is if you don't let them get their way, they'll commit suicide.
Yeah, commit suicide or...
That's the big threat, isn't it?
Yeah. They can sue you, I think, these days, and you can get taken... Or they can get taken from you and put in a different home.
Yeah. And then your attorney here was just saying during the break that once people start to get older and they realize they've transitioned, that the suicide rates go up exponentially.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They want to kill themselves more than ever.
Yeah, because they realize they did this irrevocable harm, and now they can't do anything to change it.
And the damage they're doing to their body and their hormones and everything else is absolutely criminal.
Yeah, exactly. And so, kids are very, very confused, and they obviously need biblical help and guidance. And so when they're not getting that, again, if they can go to a library and pick out a book, there's a really popular one, I can't think of the name, where, somebody had a gender change, and it's in this cutesy little book. And so, yeah, if kids are used to seeing that, if that's kind of the popular thing, then anything goes. And I live in a pretty conservative area in Indiana, but one of the, it's either the high school or the middle school, but they're allowing like furries. So it's these humans that are now identifying as animals.
And they dress up, don't they?
Yeah. But what gets crazy is the high school or the middle school, whatever school it was in my area, has to provide litter boxes for them.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no joke. And I mean, we're in like a very conservative area, and it was a really big debate because obviously all of the adults are like, no, if they're an animal, then the parents need to deal with them at home. School isn't the place for an animal. And then now you're making all of the custodians clean up litter boxes. Like, that's just insane.
Yeah. These kids that think they're animals want to use the litter boxes?
I guess so. Enough to where it's an issue.
Oh, okay.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Lord Jesus, come now.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. All right, let's talk about some of the beginning chapters of the Bible. And not only are they foundational for understanding things like gender and marriage and why there's so many problems in the world, but how in your teaching and ministry do you make all this exciting to kids?
Yes, that is the challenge. We're actually working on a children's program right now going through Genesis 1 through 11. My husband has an adult program completely mapped out. We go verse by verse, PowerPoint presentation. It looks really nice. And that's good for teens too. But yeah, for children, the hard thing is just trying to like censor it down enough where you don't get in trouble. So some parents might get upset if you talk about abortion. And obviously at that age, maybe you don't want to talk about those things anyway. But yeah, I think the real challenge is just trying to like talk about it on a level, but also just being able to present it in a way that they can understand, but also they're under 18 and it just seems like more and more people are going to jail. And so you want to stand strong, but also make sure things are worded well. So usually we don't get into like the really hot topics with kids, but they can understand things like design. So we go through God obviously created and designed all of these wonderful animals, and you can still talk about a lot of the things that God did do without going into some of the crazy issues.
I have a regular guest that does summer camps for kids in middle school and high school, and I get these glowing reports of how curious kids are, asking very serious questions, asking questions that probably started in grade school.
Yeah.
And now they really want to know what the truth is. And they're not taking no for an answer, which I really like. These are Christian kids, so they want to know how to understand the truth and how to function in the world and be salt and light.
Yeah.
And so if we're equipping another generation of kids to respond that way, I think the future looks bright.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, Stephanie, talk a little bit about, I want to hear more about Child Evangelism Fellowship. That sounds so interesting to me, and I don't know much about it.
Yeah, so CEF is a worldwide organization. I think they're almost in every country. There's a couple that are restricted, so I don't know if we're supposed to be in there or not. So I don't know if we're in there because of that. But yeah, they have two primary programs. The first program is called a 5-day club. That's the Backyard Bible Clubs. So they'll go into people's homes, in people's backyards. The host usually just provides snacks, and then the teens come equipped to share the gospel. So there's a Bible lesson that has the gospel woven all throughout. There's a missionary story for the saved kids. That way they can kind of apply what they're learning. They do a hands-on memory verse, very interactive. It's a lot of fun, and then some songs, and those are kind of the main components. So that's the first program that they do, and that's during the summer. And then the second program is it's called Good News Club. So if there is a public school near you, and there is, you can legally go into any public school after school and share the gospel there. So same format. They have the same like Bible lessons and things. depending on how long they have for the after school program, they'll kind of cut things out. But they'll go into these public school systems and boldly share the gospel. And legally, if there are any other after school Bible clubs, they have to let you in. And so the Supreme Court ruled they're not allowed to be biased against religious things.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can start up one of those clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had enough volunteers, even with AOI, we would love to do that. We did a hybrid creation club where we started going to people's houses and doing the same thing where we're teaching on creation, but also incorporating Bible lesson or memory verses and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So, Stephanie, there's lots of parents and grandparents listening to the show, and they're very interested in what you're saying. And when I was a kid, what I was told to do is don't run with scissors.
Yes.
So, what kind of advice can you give parents and grandparents today? Because this is happening so early.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it honestly starts with them. So if they don't know what they believe, for me, I had never really thought about creation before, didn't really know why it was important. So if they're like me, then figure out why it's important, do some research. It's important, obviously, because God said it was. And so if we don't trust what he says, then how can we trust other things that he's written? And so God gave us the Bible. It's his inspired word. It's without flaw. And so people who are trying to explain it away by some other random processes or evolution, they have it wrong. And so I would first start with the adults, make sure you know what you believe, and that way you can pass it to your grandkids, whatever the topic may be. And then dig into your kids' questions. Kids tend to have the most crazy questions, and it's the scariest part. We go around and we do presentations, and the Q&A is the scariest part for us.
Oh, I bet.
It's I have no idea what they're going to ask.
Right.
And they could ask on anything, and kids just have the brightest questions.
Yeah.
So lean into those questions, and if you don't know the answer, find somebody who does. So, my husband and I are not scientists. We love the Bible. We tend to talk the most on the Bible. But we have coworkers who have degrees in biology and PhDs in science-related things. And so if there are questions, and we do get lots of questions that are way over my head, then I have a great resource with my coworkers. Or there's fantastic ministries. You can look up Alpha Omega Institute. It's discovercreation.org. They have some blog posts, things like that. Answers in Genesis is another really good one. Yeah, so just press into their questions because they have a lot of good ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the people who I know who have walked away from the faith, they just had questions that never got answered. They weren't taken seriously as kids or even as teens,
Sure.
or their Sunday school teachers weren't equipped. And so then they found answers from kind of this fake science that doesn't need to be trusted, but
Well, you love God's word and you love kids. Stephanie, that's a winning combination.
Yes.
So thank you very much for doing the show. It's been a delight meeting you.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, Stephanie Wilhelm has been my guest. We're going to take a little break and be right back. Welcome back to the show, and attention all hunters and outdoors people. You're going to love this conversation I'm going to have with Chad and James Hampton. They're co-founders of Hunting the Truth Ministries and co-hosts of the Twin Factor Outdoor reality show. They also have a very cool devotional called 100 Days of Strength for Hunters. And you talk about just the perfect size book that you can slide in your back pocket and take out on your outdoor expedition. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Blessing.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a fascinating ministry. I there's different keys for different locks, and there's everybody is interested in something, and you guys are taking advantage of an interest that so many people have.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
That's hunting.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And I love that the foundation of your ministry is based on John 14:6. Say more about that.
Yes. So John 14:6, Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man come to the Father except through me. So it's interesting. God gave me a vision for our hunting ministry when I was out deer hunting one night in 2004. And of course, in that verse, Jesus calls himself the truth. And I believe that that night, God called Chad and I into the hunting ministry. And I was praying one night in my tree stand, and I was just asking God, what do you have for my life? At that point in my life, I really didn't have the direction that God had for my life. I was seeking him for that. And I just asked him, what do you have for my life? And I felt like he shared with me in my spirit, he said, I want you to hunt for me like you guys hunt for deer or for these animals. And so I went home that night and I called Chad and I said, I believe God wants us to launch a hunting ministry called Hunting the Truth Ministries. And I said, I believe God wants us to hunt for him, and he wants us to teach everybody that we come in contact with how to hunt for him as well.
That's awesome. How big are the freezers at your house?
We actually have two big chest freezers in our barn, and they're always full of venison, and usually that's all we eat is venison. We eat on it all year long. So right when October 1st comes, our deer season, we're ready to get a couple more deer in our freezer.
Yeah, Wyatt was just telling me that his dad and brothers are going to go elk hunting, and I did that once, and I didn't like it because they had me carry the elk decoys. Those are like 200 pounds apiece, so I didn't like that at all.
They had you doing the hard work.
So let's talk about the theme of your devotional, 100 Days of Strength for Hunters. I've read a couple of them, and they're wonderful, but maybe just give our audience a little bit of a main theme of it.
Well, the first devotion, What Are You Hunting For?, is really the main theme of our speaking ministry and our ministry in general. What are you really truly hunting for? The interesting part about our ministry and what makes it somewhat unique is that when we speak, we tell people, we have people raise their hand and say, are you a hunter? And then we have people raise their hands and say, are you not a hunter? And people will still raise their hands of animals. And we tell everybody's a hunter. We're all searching for something. We're all pursuing something. Mm-hmm. We're all chasing after something. What are you truly hunting for? And then we move forward and we talk about things like, are you hunting for things that last or things that don't last? Are you hunting for things that are eternal or things that are temporary? We got all these deer mounts on our wall. We got, you look around, we can't take any of this with us when we leave this earth. We can't take any of it. Is it temporary or is it eternal? And we often talk about a man named Solomon in the Bible. He wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. The Bible says that he was actually a man that had everything you could ever want. In the first chapter of Ecclesiastes, and I'm paraphrasing this a little bit, he said that he used his life to seek what was good for a man to do under the sun. The word hunt and the word seek have the same definition. He kind of went on a hunt in his life to see what was good for a man to do under the sun. And then he wrote a book, Ecclesiastes, of 12 chapters in the Bible. And through the whole book, he said that it was all meaningless, which means without a purpose. And it was like he was telling us, don't go on that hunt that I went on, because he experienced everything in life, all the power, the money, the fame, everything you could ever want. And then he wrote a whole book about how it was all meaningless. How can that be? And basically what we take from it is that he was saying, don't go on that hunt that I went on. Don't hunt or make the hunt of your life after things that don't last, the money, the power, the fame. Even though obviously we need temporary things to live, he based his life on it, his life hunt on that, and his happiness, because it was like a depressing book. The book of Ecclesiastes almost has a depressing tone. And he says, don't go on that hunt that I went on. Focus on the eternal things. And he says that in the last chapter of the book, where he said, the whole duty of man is this, to fear God and keep his commandments. And we know the greatest commandment, Jesus said, is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself. Those are the only two things that we will have with us when we leave this earth that we have here. We'll have a relationship with God when we leave here if we've accepted him into our heart. And then those that have done the same thing, they'll be with in eternity with us. the only two things we'll have with us when we leave this earth are those two things that we have here on earth. So what are we focusing our life hunt on? Are we focusing and hunting on eternal things or temporary things?
Yes. Yes. And this is James, by the way, one of the other big reasons why we wrote this devotion, one of our favorite verses is Psalms 119:28, where David, he says, he asked God, strengthen me according to your word. And that's one of the reasons why we named our devotional 100 Days of Strength for Hunters, because we've experienced over the 40 years of having a relationship with Jesus that all of our strength comes from God's word, comes from the Lord, comes from his word. So we wanted to have just a little pocket-sized devotion that we could give to hunters and outdoorsmen, where they could put it in their backpacks or go out in the woods like we do and sit in the tree stand and read and get God's strength every day, just a little bit of God's strength every day. That's one of the biggest reasons why we wrote it.
Another reason why we wrote it and called it 100 Days of Strength for Hunters is because in the greatest commandment, when he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, we understand when we hunt animals with all of our strength. We'll get up and spend hours and hours and hours in the woods and hunt for that animal. We'll do things that it spent so many hours. We want to hunt God with that same intensity, and we know when Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, it takes a lot of strength to hunt God with everything you have. And so we wanted to provide a tool, a resource for people to get their daily strength to hunt God and his plan for their life.
That's awesome. Chad and James Hampton are my guests. Are you guys identical twins?
Yes,
we are mirror identical.
Yeah.
We try not to be, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, I figured. Who's older?
So this is James. I'm older by 30 seconds. We were born C-section, so
Okay.
it was born really quick. But Chad often tries to tell people that he's really the older one. He says if we were born naturally, then he would have came out first. So he tries to steal my birthright, but I always tell him, nope, you're not going to do that.
And then who would you guess is a better shot?
Well, I don't often give James props for anything, but I have to give him some credit. James is a better shot than I am. It's probably because he practices more than I do too, but James is a better shot. He is a really good shot.
That's always the case, isn't it? The person that practices usually has the better results. All right, I want to ask you about just ministering to men. Whenever you do shoulder to shoulder, side by side, you're out in the world, you're out in the outdoors doing something. That's the best way to talk to a man about the gospel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yes, we've found, interestingly, a lot of our events are in churches, wild game dinners, sportsmen's banquets, and we found that even there's a lot of men that will come into a church and listen to our presentation, but they will not come to a church on Sunday morning, and they tell us that. They'll say, "Well, we'll come and listen to you speak this message, but we won't come to church on Sunday morning." It is, and outdoors really is a good place to just let your guard down, be out and outdoors. You know, the interesting phrase that we hear a lot, you'll hear us hunters say, is we go deer hunting because it's tree therapy. We go out and we spend time with God and talk to him and just tell him how we feel and let God minister to us. That's why we call it tree therapy.
I love it. Let me take one short break. We'll be right back with Chad and James Hampton. They're the co-founders of Hunting the Truth Ministries. They also have a wonderful little devotional called 100 Days of Strength for Hunters. If you're a hunter or you have a hunter in your family, this is a great little devotional to slide in your back pocket when you're spending all kinds of time in that deer stand. We're going to take a break and be right back. If you're like me, you love that Faith Radio app, and it makes it possible to stream shows wherever and whenever. My favorite things to do. So when you listen to the Faith Radio app, you can hear conversations that you're looking for or that you love on demand. So you can listen live, you can replay your favorite conversations, and find new programs that you will love. So find hope in every moment right when you need it. You can text the word app to 877-933-2484, and then just follow the link or search Faith Radio Network in your app store. So glad to be talking to Chad and James Hampton. They're the co-founders of Hunting the Truth Ministries, and they're also the co-hosts of the Twin Factor Outdoor Reality Show. That debuted in 2015. And in 2024, it was won a top TV show series from the National Religious Broadcasters, and now you're on a bunch of stations, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yes, we were on 5 different Christian television networks.
On Dish and DirecTV. Yep.
That's awesome. So
Yes.
sometimes your hunting expeditions include people that have physical disabilities and some disadvantaged youth. Talk about those trips. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we are so blessed to be able to be a part of that. So on our first year of our show that aired on the Pursuit Channel, we had a commanding sergeant major from Fort Benning in Georgia call us and ask us if we would team up with them and start the first Gold Star hunt for the military on Fort Benning. And so for 5 years after that, we got the awesome opportunity to team up with the United States Army there and take out the Gold Star youth who lost their fathers on active duty, take them out hunting, build relationships with them and their family. We still keep in touch with some of them, of the youth that we got a chance to take out and just get in the outdoors and build relationships. You know, that it's so important. We always tell people when we talk to them about our ministry, you don't have to go far to find either somebody in a wheelchair that you can minister to or a youth that don't have a father figure. And the Gold Star Hunt has been one of the highlights of our ministry and the blessings to be able to be involved in.
Yes. We also partner up with other organizations around the country as well to take youth out hunting. Just for an example, every December, coming up here this December, we're going to be traveling back down to Alabama to partner up with an organization called Hunting with the Stars. It's led by one of our DNR friends. He's a DNR officer down there in Alabama, and they take out youth who are disadvantaged and also have terminal illnesses. So we go down there and partner up with them. We get to take those kids out hunting and hopefully give them an experience that they'll never forget. And then Chad and I, we get to share a message on Saturday of that weekend every year to the kids and their parents, and we get to share hunting stories and share Jesus and build relationships. And those are the type of things that God has really blessed us with the opportunity to do, and we're so happy and blessed to be able to do that, to share Jesus with those kids.
I love it. In your devotional 100 Days of Strength for Hunters, one of the pages I read, and I kind of stopped in my tracks, was day 16 when it said you were settled in our kayaks and ready to head down the Mayaca River in Florida. We'd been informed that we'd be surrounded by alligators the entire trip down the river, and it happened to be mating season. That's when I stopped reading.
Yeah, that was a very interesting trip. So that was one of the first 2 years of our TV show as well. We had some friends down in Florida. They invited us down to do some hog hunting, and they own some orange groves. So we got to hog hunt. But in the middle of the day when we were hog hunting, we also had another friend down there that hosted what they call extreme kayaking trips. So you kayak down the Mayaca River, and of course there's alligators everywhere on the Mayaca River. And it was so, I would say it was so dangerous, we had to sign a liability waiver just to get on the river. That's how dangerous it is. But it was really fun. We got on the river and we got to kayak all the way up and down that river, and there were a couple close calls. I would say there was a couple close calls, but we had fun, and God definitely gave us a lot of spiritual applications from that trip.
Yeah, on fear.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, that is those are some high stakes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely an adrenaline rush. I would say that. I don't know if our wives were too happy about us going on that trip, but hey, we're still here. We're alive. We survived.
Yeah. It sounds like, having a twin brother is a fun person in life to go do stuff with. And then it's a really fun person in life to go do ministry with and share the gospel of Jesus. So what are some other benefits? I mean, do you guys live close to each other?
We do. We live about 25 minutes
Okay.
away from each other. It's been a blessing, really, mostly to be a twin our whole lives. We kind of joke because if you're walking around this earth with someone that looks just like you, sometimes that can get annoying. But and we laugh about it. But at the same time, it's been a blessing because we're always pushing each other. We've always had a partner that can push you to the limits, that can compete, and God in His wisdom knew with our business and our ministry, James and I, our gifts complement each other. What I'm weak at, James is really strong at, and what he's weak at, I'm strong at. And so God knew what He was doing when He made us twins. But really, um, the theme, we really wanted to also use that in ministry too. Twins, obviously, we look just like each other, made in the same image. And then the word factor means having the impact on the outcome of something. And so when we were actually praying about the name of our TV show, God took us to Genesis 1:26. It says, "Let us make mankind in our own image and likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and over all the wild animals and all the creatures that move along the ground." He said, "Let us make mankind in our image," meaning the Trinity, but he's talking about being in a twin of the image of Jesus, just like James and I are made in each other's image. He said, "Let us make mankind in our image and let us give them a purpose on this earth." And so James and I, when we go out and speak, we also teach that too, is that James and I, it's not just us that are twins. We're all twins. We're all made in the image of God. And He's given all of us a purpose on this earth that He has for us while we're here. And so we tell everybody, it's not just us that has the twin factor. Our audience and everyone in our audience has the twin factor, and God has a plan for every person.
Chad, tell me the story about walking with your eyes closed in the very early morning when there's no sunshine.
Yeah. Well, as you can read in the book, it's a very good spiritual application. Walking in the dark and not knowing where you're going and having to plead with God to give you the direction on where you're going. James always kind of makes fun of me because he says I'm directionally challenged. So especially when you're getting down out of your tree stand in the dark and you kind of lose where you're at, it's even harder to know what direction it is. But that was one of my favorite devotions because it really does give a good spiritual application that we all need direction in life from the Lord.
Yes.
So where did your love for hunting come? Was it your parents? Was it your grandparents? Where did all that start with you?
Yeah, so when we were 7 years old, our father was a bow hunter, and at 7 years old, he took us out bow hunting with him one night, and that was back several years ago when it was wooden tree stands, and we didn't use safety harnesses back then or anything. Which nowadays, if you don't use safety harness, you get in real trouble. But that was a long time ago. But our father took us up in the tree stand bow hunting, and that's really where God gave us the love for hunting at. We got to sit in the tree stand and watch the sunset and the deer come out in the bean field and just receive that love of hunting that every hunter knows. Every hunter knows what I'm talking about when I say that. So that's where we got the love of hunting from. Our grandfather was a really big raccoon hunter as well. And that's where my dad received his love of hunting, was from his father, our grandpa. But our grandfather, I mean, when we were in high school, almost every night we would go out raccoon hunting with him and stay out till 2 or 3 in the morning. So we had a grandfather and a father that mentored us as far as hunting, and that's where our love for hunting came from.
Mm-hmm. And what about your families? Do you have kids that are following in Dad's footsteps? Is there a love of hunting in the family?
Well, yeah. This is James. I have 2 children. My son's 24 years old, and my daughter's 21. My son is a huge hunter. Of course, he basically grew up while we've had our TV show. So his first deer harvest and his first turkey harvest was on TV. So
Oh,
of
wow.
course he's a huge hunter. But my daughter, she's just an animal lover. She doesn't like to hunt. She doesn't like the harvesting part of it, but she will go out in the woods with me. She'll just sit there and watch the animals and spend time with me. So one of my children he is a big hunter, but my daughter isn't a hunter. She's an animal lover.
Mm-hmm. What about any pushback you might get from churches about hunting?
Yeah, we've gotten some comments from people in general about hunting, but for us, what we tell people is that, we don't like, obviously we call it harvesting. You're killing animals, but we call it management.
Hmm.
We're harvesting the animals to manage what God has put on this earth.
And eat.
We don't. There's certain parts of hunting that we don't like. That's one of them.
Hmm.
Is the harvest, some of the parts of harvesting, but we also do it to manage, and we eat everything that we harvest.
Fabulous. Well, it's been a delight meeting you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I have enjoyed talking to you, and have a good hunting season this year.
Thank you. Great meeting you
Yeah.
also.
You
Thanks
bet.
for the
You
blessing.
bet.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Chad and James Hampton have been my guests. Their book is 100 Days of Strength for Hunters. That's all the show we have for today. Thanks for joining me. I have loved being with you. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Programming like this is made available through your support. Information available at myfaithradio.com.